5 notable people who foresaw their own deaths. Many of us will have experienced the feeling that we are going to die at one time or another. Maybe that feeling came when we got into trouble while swimming or in the seconds before a car accident. Then again, sometimes we have a hangover so brutal that we just really want death to come. A smaller number of people have foreseen their own deaths and proven to be absolutely right though, suggesting that there is more to premonitions than we know, and sometimes those who have that sense of impending mortality are notable public figures. Here are the list of the top 5 people who had somehow foreseen that their end is coming. Number 5. Buddy Holly. Buddy Holly was the first in a long line of talented rock musicians to die very young, and apparently he had some advance warning that this was going to be his fate. Holly died in a plane crash on February 3, 1959, alongside J.P. the Big Bopper Richardson and Ritchie Valens, while they were taking part in the Winter Dance Party tour of the Midwest. However, in the days before the tour began, Holly and his wife Marie Elena both had frightening dreams that seemed to be telling them something. Years later, Marie Elena stated that she had experienced a vivid nightmare where she was standing in a field and saw a fireball fall to earth, leaving a burning crater in the ground. When she woke up in a state of shock, Buddy told her that he had also had a strange dream in which he was flying away from her on a plane, with the feeling that he would not be back to see her again. The fact that both of them had these weird plane and crash-related visions at the same time, days before his fatal journey, is a very odd and unsettling coincidence. Number 4. Arnold Schoenberg. Phobias can be pretty horrible for those of us unlucky enough to suffer from them, but not many have been quite as damaging as that endured by composer Arnold Schoenberg. He had triskaidekaphobia, which is a fear of the number 13, and became convinced that it would have something to do with his death. Given that he was born on the 13th, his birthdays were never cheery affairs, but his 76th on 13th of July 1951 had been a particularly bad one. He had spent the entire day in his bed, riddled with fear and certain he would die before it ended. His wife later said that she felt relieved when she looked at the clock and saw there were only 15 minutes left before the date changed. She went on to add that it was at almost exactly that moment that she heard the doctor shout to her, and when she went up to the bedroom he told that Schoenberg had died of a massive heart attack. Some have suggested that his sheer terror helped to cause the attack that killed him, which is surely a lesson to the rest of us to get some therapy. Number 3. Martin Luther King Jr. Possibly the most famous example of someone appearing to know that they were going to die is that of Martin Luther King Jr. In April 1968 he traveled to Memphis to lend his support to a strike by African American workers, who were protesting the response of the city to the accidental deaths of 2 men. Martin Luther King Jr. was a man used to facing threats to his life as the most prominent face of the struggle for racial equality in the U.S. But despite that, there was something genuinely ominous about the speech he gave in the Mason Temple on the night of April 3 of 1968. Quoting from the Bible, Martin Luther King Jr. told the assembled crowd that he had been to the mountaintop, and had seen the promised land of equality on the other side, assuring them that they would make it there. However, he added, "I may not get there with you," and pointed out that while he would like to live for a long time, he was not worried about that or his fate. The following evening he was shot dead on the balcony of his hotel, and his final speech suggested that he sensed that something was going to happen to him but that he was leaning on his faith for strength. Number 2. Mark Twain. Novelist Mark Twain had to correct exaggerated reports of his death in 1897, leading to one of the most frequently repeated quotes ever. But what is less well known is that he actually made a nearly accurate prediction about when he would die. The creator of legendary fictional characters Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn was born in 1835, which was also a year in which Halley's Comet made an appearance. This comet has an orbiting time of roughly 75 years, coming close to Earth again at the end of that period of time, and Twain seemed to know that his destiny was tied to its orbit.
Just before it was due to make its next appearance, in 1910, he was quoted as saying that, "I came in with Halley's Comet, it is coming again, and I expect to go out with it." Sadly, this proved to be all too accurate a prediction of events, as Twain was to die on 21st April of that year. While some have pointed out that the orbiting timescale of the comet is similar to the average human lifespan, we do not all live for exactly 75 years, so that does not really explain the forecast. And on the top of our list. Number 1. Abraham Lincoln. When it comes to nightmares, one in which you appear as a corpse has to be in the front rank of horror. And that is what apparently happened to former U.S. President Abraham Lincoln. On the night of 4th of April 1865, Lincoln had gone to bed as usual, but the experience he had while asleep was anything but normal. The next morning he told a friend that he had dreamt of mourners crying and of a dead body lying in the East Room of the White House. The corpse was guarded by a soldier and Lincoln asked him who it belonged to. The response would have disturbed anyone as the soldier said, "The President. He was killed by an assassin." That was when Lincoln awoke, very shaken, for which we can hardly blame him, and he went on to tell his friend that he remained strangely annoyed by the dream. He seems to have sensed that this was something more sinister than just eating too much cheese before bed, and he was right. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth exactly 10 days later, on 14th of April, 1865. For more informational videos like this, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and click that notification bell to stay updated.